Welcome CKCC, thank you for joining in today. We want to present to you some of the work Church Council has been doing to develop our missional engagement in the community. One of my favourite images in the New Testament for the church is the boat, this image of a boat. And in Mark chapter 4, we have the story of Jesus, who is tired from doing ministry, and he falls asleep in the back of the boat when it was being swamped by waves. The disciples are terrified, and they're crying out to Jesus to save them. And so in this ancient image of the boat as the church, a fisherman's boat focused and tossed about on the sea, the church is sustained by the presence of the living Lord. In Matthew 14, the disciples are caught in a storm, and thinking they're about to die, they see Jesus walking on the water coming towards them, and then he calms the storm. And in Matthew 8, Jesus and the disciples take the journey to the other side of the lake where the Gentiles live, and there he encounters a displaced man amongst the tombs and a herd of wild pigs. So central to this image of the boat is a group of disciples on an adventure with Jesus, and they're about the mission of bringing God's kingdom to earth. And so Jesus continues to call his church to this task. And as a church, we don't have to come up with a mission. We already have one. We just need to organise our life around God's mission. And so that will mean that we will need to mature in some of our decision-making processes in the life of our church. Being willing to have difficult conversations and make hard decisions. Being willing to allow church council to offer the leadership that we've called them to. And to be willing to take some new risks. And so our church council is leading us in the task of organising our life around mission. And we believe these projects are going to help us fulfil some of our once long-held dreams and inspire some new ones. So please take the time to listen and inquire and pray for the confirmation of the Spirit's leading in our congregation. In the past few years, we have financially supported overseas aid agencies like Act for Peace, Uniting World and the Timor Children's Fund. And we've given significantly to these international agencies and their projects. So we are now asking the congregation to commit to a more long-term and intentional partnership with Uniting World that will involve financial giving, but also the opportunity to develop relationships with people in Pacific communities. We are hoping that we will be able to make some exchange visits when we're able and get to know our sisters and brothers in Christ who are building the kingdom in these communities. So here's a video to share more about the Gender Equality Project, Raising Her Voice.
Women are voiceless people in our community. In our meeting halls, only men are allowed to say something.
Pacific women know and understand their strengths.
Confident,
caring,
bold, respected,
powerful.
They're often referred to as the backbone of their communities. Unfortunately, given cultural and theological understandings of the place and role of women, this has meant that women don't often get the opportunity to express their gifts or to actually contribute to church and society. Up to about 70% of women would have experienced some form of violence in their lives, and this is a horrific and actually very high statistic.
I'm looking at a Pacific in the next 20 or so years, violence-free. I would like to see, and I hope to see, women being free, girls being free, and that they live as equal members of societies, of communities, of churches. It is a very necessary vision because in reality, that's not happening.
The women, they remain silent.
they usually think of female as second class.
Thinking about Australia as a parallel community, our statistics in domestic violence isn't that great. And as a result, I guess this is where the Pacific churches and Australian churches can work together to eliminate violence against women and children. You don't have to be a voice for the voiceless, just pass the mic. I really love this quote, as it is a reminder that it is about standing alongside our Pacific women as they do their work, but it's also about amplifying and empowering their strengths to shine. I am reminded of Paul's metaphor of the body, where Paul says that if one part of the body suffers, the whole body suffers. One part of the body celebrates and achieves something great, and the whole body shares in that achievement and celebration. As a global church, as the global body of Christ, we need each other, and we are all called to work together, and in this particular instance, to work together towards the elimination of violence against women and children.
As a child at the old Methodist church down on the corner, I remember that I was part of the Friends Club. And as a member of the Friends Club, I received literature and talks about what the church was doing in Pacific Island. Through Uniting World, the church continues its mission in the Pacific. Church Council has been considering what might be possible for us to support with this mission. The Uniting World Gender Equity Project supports women scholars of theology in the Pacific. Church Council's proposed commitment would be to raise funds and publicity for scholarship to the value of $3,000 a year for 3 years. These funds we would raise through special events and not from our operating funds. Through Uniting World, we would be able to build relationships with the scholarship recipients through contact, through writing, perhaps electronic or virtual contact, and through prayer support. Who knows, we may even be able to visit or host visitors from a Pacific church, from our Pacific church partners, in person or virtually. In return, Uniting World would commit to providing us with at least half-yearly reports on the impacts of our support and visit us annually. They'd advise us how the project is travelling, and if there was a significant change in the project, there would be the ability to modify the agreement between CKCC and Uniting World. If our congregation agrees on the 20th of February at the congregation meeting, we will have a draft agreement outlining our commitment with Uniting World that we would then sign, and that would allow them to proceed with initiating the scholarships.
The second project we'd like you to consider is the Uniting Care Connect 100 project. This project was initiated by Uniting Care and designed to help strengthen connections with the Uniting Church congregations throughout Queensland. Connect 100 builds on Uniting Care's commitment to sharing in mission as part of the church family. Connect 100 projects are already underway in places like Redcliffe, Central Queensland and Elanora. These local projects are designed to foster collaboration in serving our communities, providing care and support for Uniting Care staff and volunteers, and innovation in driving our shared mission and vision for the church in Queensland. So let's hear from Reverend Peter Armstrong and Scott Guyot about this project and what it might look like at CKCC.
Good morning, folks. It is great to meet you and be with you today. My name's Scott Guyot and I'm part of the Connect 100 team with Uniting Care Queensland. We're really excited to be able to share with you a little opportunity for Uniting Care and Chermside Kedron Community Church to work together, to be in the boat together, so to speak, as we work to serve and love our neighbours. Connect 100 is a new initiative of Uniting Care in which we're really trying to commit to shared partnership with congregations right across Queensland. Those partnerships are about loving our neighbours, as I've already said. There's 3 particular objectives we have for Connect 100, and that is in a local context, in a community, a town, a suburb, to work with congregation and agency side by side. Firstly, to look after and care for Uniting Care staff. Some of our staff, as you would imagine, have worked incredibly hard over the last few years, and we want to really make sure we are loving and caring for our staff as a church, as the church that employs them through the auspices of Uniting Care. Secondly, what we want to do is work together within our communities, agency and congregation, sharing and working together. And thirdly, as those relationships develop, as we get to know and care for the staff, as we work side by side in our communities, we hope that new innovations, new ways of working together in mission will emerge for us as agency and congregation together. We're particularly excited about the opportunity to work with you at Chermside Kedron in what is such a central and significant location in the north side of Brisbane. The spot right there where your congregation sits physically, but also the heart and the attitude that you have towards your community fits really well with this notion of Connect 100. And just up the road, of course, we have quite a significant office. A whole bunch of staff working in the area of family and disability services, aged care and other community activities. So we're very excited by the chance to kind of look at what we can do together, to get to know you a little bit more, and as I said, to kind of travel in the boat with you. We're going to pass over to Sue now, who's going to talk a little bit more specifically about what a partnership between Uniting Care and Chermside Kedron might look like under this banner of Connect 100. Look forward to being with you in the days and weeks to come and to working together as we go forward. Thanks.
Hello everyone. I'm really excited about all the proposals that you're hearing about today, but this next one is one that I'm particularly excited about because I think it really summarises a lot of what many of us have been dreaming about and visioning for quite some time. So let me share some of the aspects of it with you. The first aspect is to support pastorally some of the Uniting Care staff. And many of these are just up the road from us. And so what might this look like for us here? It might involve pastoral care visits to perhaps staff who've lost loved ones or maybe who are dealing with other life crises. It might be conducting funerals for staff families and just providing a listening ear in the workplace. The second thing is community mission. And this is really to help us to connect more deeply with our missional enterprises. We're very fortunate here at CKCC that we have a number of these already. Our Chatter's Coffee Shop and Grapple's Thrift Shop. Think about all of their volunteers and customers who come every week. So we might connect more deeply with them as well as connecting more deeply with our hall hirers. And I know this is something that many of you have wanted to do for a long time. So this gives us an opportunity to do that, to connect with them, their organisers and their participants. And maybe to look for some collaborative opportunities with Uniting Care to see how we might be able to serve that community more effectively. So what might this look like here? It might involve creating opportunities to build relationships more with these people and to discover what actually are their points of need. It might involve inviting people to appropriate events and programs like the Mothers Group or the Grief and Loss Group, Messy Church, and maybe to explore new opportunities for meeting people's needs holistically and linking them to Uniting Care services. And then training and development. And this one is to engage our CKCC volunteers with training to support them in the development of programs and relational connections. So what might this look like? It could include training for relationship building, pastoral care responses to mental health and dementia, and information about Uniting Care services. And then in terms of mission collaboration, this would be to help support us in our missional projects where feasible. And what this might look like, it might include developing our emergency relief program with Uniting Care clients or Uniting Care staff being involved in some of our projects like the ones you're hearing about today. Or maybe making connections with groups like the local domestic violence group. And then lastly, Uniting Church Queensland Liaison, to connect with Uniting Care with neighbouring Northside congregations this might look like perhaps involving them or encouraging them to connect like we have with Clare Homes or a nearby service like that. So we'd like to present this proposal for your consideration today.
Many of the older folk in our congregation would remember a time when our church pioneered the work of agencies such as Lifeline, Blue Care, or Blue Nursing as it was in those days, Help Industries. They were often commenced and supported by local congregations and then became very professional and employed more people. And we in the Uniting Church were very proud of these agencies and their profile in the community. However, gradually it seemed that the links between those organisations and local churches seemed to fade and sometimes disappear. So we welcome Uniting Care with their Connect 100 project, which seeks to re-establish the links between these various agencies and with local congregations. We at CKCC have struggled to try to extend our mission outreach. So under the Connect 100 program, Uniting Care has agreed to fund a ministry chaplain or agent based at CKCC for 6 days stipend a fortnight, with CKCC funding another 1 day a fortnight. Now the associated allowances for that position are going to be split 40% to CKCC and 60% for Uniting Care. So our share of this arrangement will cost us $351 a week. So in a nutshell, this opportunity to us is to have a 7 day a fortnight chaplain for which CKCC needs to pay for only 1 day. We realise that funding this, and it will be an extra $18,000 a year for the duration of the project, it's going to be a stretch for us out of our existing budget. However, we believe this project has significant capacity to achieve far more in terms of advancing the goals of mission into the community than we ever would have been able to achieve on our own. When you think about it, if 100 people contributed $3.50 a week, that would cover it. So for those of you who drink coffee, 1 cup of coffee a week. So I believe it is possible for us to achieve this.
Our third project is an invitation. Reverend Josie has been reimagining how discipleship might look like amongst our young people in Sunday school. So let's hear some of her dreamings.
We've been exploring about Sunday school, and in particular thinking about what it would look like for Sunday school to take a really intentional focus on growing disciples. We know that this is true both for Sunday school, but that it's relevant in the activities of Chermside Kedron Community Church beyond Sunday school. So the following thoughts will focus on how we move forward in terms of Sunday school, but we also know that it will connect significantly with all-age worship and with Messy Church. And so as we begin this little session, let us think about what does it look like to grow in faith. In all of this, we've been recognising that one person does not live in a vacuum, and that there are many ways that people experience and understand their faith and their life as a disciple. And particularly, we experience the spiritual elements of life in all parts. And so that is as an individual, but it is also within our families or within community groups. And so particularly as we think of this, we want to consider how do we help people to grow as disciples in all three of those elements. And so I wonder, for you, how have you experienced or engaged in faith as an individual? What about as part of your family? Or what has it been like for you to engage spiritually within a community, whether that community is church or a different community? So as we think about how we're going to move forward, we've come up with we're adapting a very simple framework into what we are already doing. And the framework we're going to use is head, heart, hand. And in this, the head refers to knowledge. Who is God? How do we understand God and God's values? What do we know about God? Heart refers to that emotional reflection, but also that connection, that relationship that with God and with God's creation. And then in this, hand refers to that practical expression of faith, with it being through worship, witness, and service. So these three parts or elements are woven throughout our experience of faith. They are all important, and they can also impact each other. It doesn't necessarily have to start with head, go to heart, then go to hand, but sometimes it can be the hand that informs us of our understanding. So let us consider an example of what this might look like. And we're going to start with our head thought. And we're going to think, just for this example, we're going to think about something that I hope that we're all a little bit familiar with. And that is the idea that God is the creator. So if we open our Bibles to the first page, we'll find something like this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. As the story continues, we learn more about who God is and how about God existed before time and was able to, from nothing, create all of life. And so I wonder, what do you know about God and the story of creation? And so this is part of our head knowledge, our understanding of who God is. But in this example, we're going to move to the heart thoughts here. And I want you to imagine a place in creation that you love. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's a hillside, maybe it's your garden. I want you to imagine that you're there. And I want you to think about God as the creator who lovingly formed all of this and let it to grow into what it is around you. How does that make you feel? What does it make you think about who God is? How does it make you want to respond? What does it mean to you that God created this beautiful and diverse world? And so even in that thinking about our emotions, we're linking to both the head and the hand. And so we're going to move to our hand. And as we experience this beautiful creation that we have been blessed with, we are moved to respond. And some of the ways that we are moved to respond is by taking care of it. And maybe it's something like recycling or trying to use less things. And so I guess our wondering is, what can we do this week that is practical, that helps us to care for and respond to God as our creator? And so I'm hoping that that very little sort of obvious example helps you to understand what this framework might look like and how it might be able to be used in many, many different ways. And so as a little bit of a summary, we're looking at our approach, and these are some of those questions that will guide us as we work through this. And as we think about who God is, how do I make sense of this? And what is my response? These are some questions that will lead us as people who prepare the lessons, as people who engage in the lessons, but also as participants. And so these are our important framing. But we also, as we start to think about our year, we think about what we're going to focus on, particularly in terms of Sunday school. And so we've got three things that are our focuses for 2022. And that is leadership, family resources, and an invitation to contribute. And so these are going to be some of our primary bits of work. And so the leadership is about equipping and supporting those who are helping, particularly in Sunday school. Family resources, we've already started to send out weekly Faith at Home resources, but we're going to look at different ways that we can support parents to help make use of moments and do intentional discipleship in our homes. And the invitation to contribute is about thinking particularly in terms of all age service. What will it look like, or can we help, or can we enable our young people to actually offer leadership and to plan in that space. And so we're working on what it might look like for people of all ages to lead our all-age worship service. And so all of this is part of how we're going to engage in our faith here at CKCC with our head, heart and hand this year. And so I wonder for you, how might you engage in this process? What might you have to offer? Or how might you be able to support the ministries of Sunday School? And some of that might be you can come and have a chat with me or with Olivia Noddle about what is happening and how you might be involved.
On Sunday the 20th of February, following our worship service, we're going to be holding a congregational meeting to talk about these missional projects. And we will decide if we're going to support the Uniting World Gender Equality Project and the Uniting Care Connect 100 project. These will take the decisions of the congregation and your support. We believe these two projects will enrich our discipleship and move us into the local and global community. I want to ask you to prayerfully consider these projects and our commitments and come prepared on the 20th of February to make a collective decision about these proposals. Josie has also presented to you an invitation to be involved in forming the faith of our young people and to reimagine with her how a discipleship path for our young people might help them grow in their faith, particularly in Sunday school. So I want to ask you to prayerfully consider how you can be involved in the discipleship of our young people. We pray that these projects will inspire you and encourage you to imagine the kingdom of God coming to earth at CKCC.